Backstage, a small figure huddled under the shadows of towering stage props, her tiny shoulders hunched with nerves. She was no taller than the microphone stand, and her hands shook as she clutched the sheet music, the edges worn and familiar. The murmurs of the audience seeped through the heavy curtains, growing louder with every passing second, like a tide threatening to sweep her away. Her heart pounded violently, a rapid drumbeat that seemed to echo off the walls. Around her, the crew bustled, giant in comparison to her small frame. Stage lights flickered, casting long shadows that made the theater feel endless. Parents hovered nearby, offering quick squeezes of reassurance, their smiles warm but nervous. A last-minute adjustment to her dress left her fidgeting, pulling the fabric down over her tiny knees. She glanced up at the vast stage, where the polished wooden floor stretched out under bright spotlights, the audience waiting expectantly. She whispered to herself, barely audible, "I can do this." The words felt small, fragile, yet somehow grounding. Her legs trembled as she stepped forward, the curtains parting slowly. A wave of light hit her, warm and intense, and the faces of hundreds of people blurred together in the bright glare. The audience murmured, their whispers carrying a mix of curiosity and expectation. They saw a little girl, so small, and assumed her performance would be equally tiny, perhaps endearing but forgettable. Her tiny frame seemed swallowed by the stage, yet there was a spark in her eyes, a quiet determination that belied her size. Taking a deep breath, she squared her shoulders, lifted her chin, and approached the microphone. The moment stretched, the air thick with anticipation. Then, she opened her mouth, ready to unleash a voice that nobody in the room would ever forget. The theater held its breath as the girl leaned into the microphone, her tiny hands gripping the stand with careful precision. The pianist struck the opening chord, soft but deliberate, and she closed her eyes for a fraction of a second. Then came the first note, clear, rich, and impossibly strong for someone so small. The sound filled the entire hall, bouncing off the walls, reaching the farthest corners, and silencing the murmurs of the audience. Heads turned in astonishment. The judges froze mid-note, pens hovering over their scoring sheets. One whispered to another, barely audible, "Did she just sing that?" The audience, expecting a high-pitched, childlike voice, was suddenly confronted with something mature, resonant, and deeply moving. Her tone was flawless, each vibration steady and controlled, carrying emotion far beyond her tender age. As the music flowed, her confidence grew. Her shoulders straightened, her tiny frame seemingly swelling with the power of her own voice. Every note was delivered with precision, every pause intentional. The gap between expectation and reality widened with each measure. The audience's initial surprise shifted into awe, people whispered, leaned forward in their seats, their eyes widening. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment as disbelief etched across faces. Even backstage, seasoned performers paused to watch. Their jaws tightened, whispers of amazement rippling through the crew. This was no ordinary child singer. This was someone extraordinary. The girl's small hands barely moved, but her voice commanded the room entirely. The vastness of the stage, the bright lights, even the enormity of the audience, all melted away in the power of her first note. By the time she finished the opening phrase, the theater was utterly captivated. Skepticism had vanished, replaced by a stunned silence that hung heavy in the air, as if everyone collectively realized they were witnessing something they would never forget. As the song progressed, the girl's voice shifted from technical brilliance to something much deeper. Her tiny frame seemed to vanish as the emotion poured out of her, each note heavy with feeling far beyond her years. The audience, initially stunned by her power, now felt their hearts tighten. There was a raw honesty in her voice that made people instinctively lean forward, some gripping the armrests as if bracing for an invisible wave. Her eyes glistened, reflecting the stage lights, and every subtle movement, the tilt of her head, the curl of her fingers around the microphone, added meaning to the song. The judges, usually composed and unflappable, were now leaning forward in their seats, captivated, some blinking rapidly to hold back tears. Whispers of amazement fluttered through the theater, "She's 9, She can't feel this way, yet every note told a story of pain, hope, and maturity, as if she had lived decades of life in a few short years. Backstage, the crew paused in their tasks, mesmerized. Even the pianist had stopped momentarily, letting the girl's voice lead entirely. Her performance was no longer just singing, it was storytelling. It was an experience that demanded attention, respect, and awe. Every person in the room, from the front row to the balcony, was drawn into her tiny world, powerless to look away. By the final emotional phrase, the audience was silent, completely absorbed. Some held their hands over their hearts, others sat frozen, unsure whether to clap or cry. In that moment, the tiny girl had transcended her size, her age, and the stage itself. She had become a force, a voice that could move an entire theater, leaving everyone utterly breathless and anticipating what she would do next. The final note lingered in the air, hanging like a delicate thread before fading into silence. For a heartbeat, the theater didn't move, no clapping, no whispering, just the heavy, awestruck stillness of hundreds of people processing what they had just heard. The girl's chest rose and fell rapidly. She had given everything she had, yet somehow still stood so small and unassuming under the blinding stage lights. Then, applause erupted. It started as a soft murmur, swelling quickly into a thunderous wave that shook the seats and echoed off the walls. The judges, already on their feet, were clapping furiously, some with eyes shining. Cameras flashed, capturing every stunned expression, while the audience whistled, cheered, and stamped their feet in pure amazement. One judge leaned forward, smiling but unable to hide his shock. "Tell me, how old are you?" he asked, his voice a mixture of disbelief and admiration. The girl's eyes widened slightly, and in a soft, almost shy whisper, she said, 9. A collective gasp went through the theater. Whispers spread like wildfire, 9. She can't be, her voice is, unreal. Even the judges paused, exchanging incredulous glances. Some shook their heads in disbelief, others covered their mouths, unable to comprehend that such a mature, powerful voice could come from someone so small. Her parents, standing at the edge of the stage, beamed with pride, tears streaking their faces. The girl's tiny shoulders lifted slightly, a shy smile breaking across her face, as if she couldn't quite understand the magnitude of what she had just accomplished. In that single moment, the audience realized that appearances could deceive, that extraordinary talent could be wrapped in the smallest of packages, and that this little girl had just rewritten the expectations of what it meant to perform. The applause grew louder, filling every corner of the theater, until the audience was on its feet. Hands clapped, whistles pierced the air, and cheers rolled like a wave across the entire hall. People were shouting, some laughing in disbelief, others wiping away tears, all united in awe of the tiny girl who had just transformed their expectations of what a child could do. The girl stood at the center of the stage, small and almost fragile in appearance, yet glowing with pride. Her chest swelled slightly as she absorbed the energy from the crowd, her shy smile breaking into something braver and brighter. The judges gave a unanimous standing ovation, some leaning over the edge of the stage, clapping with wide-eyed astonishment. One judge whispered to another, this is historic. I've never seen anything like it." Backstage, her parents rushed forward, enveloping her in a hug that lifted her slightly off the floor. Confetti began to fall from above, the stage lights swirling in a kaleidoscope of colors, and the girl's tiny frame sparkled under the glow. Cameras flashed, capturing her moment for the world, while social media exploded almost instantly. Clips of her performance were shared across the globe within minutes, the phrase, 9-year-old with a massive voice, trending everywhere. Despite all the chaos, she waved shyly at the audience, the enormity of the moment sinking in slowly. She had come on stage small and nervous, but she left commanding the admiration of hundreds in the room, and millions more who would witness her talent online. In that instant, she proved that greatness can come in the tiniest packages, that a single voice can move hearts, and that the world will stop to listen when talent refuses to be underestimated.